This is a glycerol molecule. It consists of 3 carbons bonded to 3 hydroxides and 5 hydrogens. This is a saturated fatty acid with a 5-carbon chain. You can tell it's saturated because all the bonds between the carbons are single bonds. This is an unsaturated fatty acid with a 4-carbon chain. You can tell that it's unsaturated because it has a double bond between the 2 carbons in the middle. Here is a saturated fatty acid molecule and a glycerol molecule linking through dehydration synthesis. As you can see, a hydroxide and a hydrogen ion broke away from the glycerol molecule and the saturated fatty acid to form H2O water, and that left the reaction and allowed the 2 larger molecules to bond. A hydrolysis reaction is basically the opposite of dehydration synthesis. It's when the glycerol molecule and the saturated fatty acid break apart and water is added, which allows the hydrogen ion to bond with the glycerol molecule and the hydroxide to bond once again with the saturated fatty acid. These are the structural formulas for both the saturated monoglyceride with an 8-carbon fatty acid chain and a monoglyceride with a polyunsaturated fatty acid chain. You can tell the difference between the saturated and the unsaturated because the saturated fat has only single bonds between the carbons, while the unsaturated fat has double bonds. The unsaturated fat is also a polyunsaturated fat because there are more than one double bond. As you can see, there are 2 double bonds between 4 different carbons.
There were 6 different elements used during this lab. The first was carbon, which has 4 valence electrons. Another was hydrogen, which has only 1 valence electron. And the last was oxygen, which has 6 valence electrons. Carbon is a very versatile atom because it is tetravalent, which means it can bond with 4 other elements at the same time. It can form single, double, and triple bonds. It can also form chains, branch chains, and rings when connected to other carbon atoms. Lipids are very important to living systems because they are the secondary source of energy used by the body after the carbohydrates. We can find lipids in the cell membranes as it is one of the major structural components. The basic building blocks of life anabolize through the process of dehydration synthesis, and they catabolize through the process of hydrolysis. Biological lipids originate entirely or in part from 2 distinct types of biochemical subunits or building blocks called fatty acids and glycerol.